Hi, thanks for watching. This is Jessie, and today's review, the preview, is going to be on All That We See or Seem by Ken Liu. Big thanks to NetGalley for providing a digital review copy. This is my first Ken Liu, and I was impressed, but I'm wondering if maybe this is not the Ken Liu that I should have started with, because I wasn't necessarily wowed. So, All That We See or Seem follows Julia Z, also known as Julia Z. She had a rather traumatic childhood, and then she was on her own for a while. She joined a group of idealists who thought that they were making the world a better place, and she's no longer with that group. She's distanced herself from any of the friends that she made in that group, and she just kind of spends her time alone in her apartment doing work. Well, one day there's a knock at her door, and it's this man. He's a lawyer, and he says that his wife Ellie has gone missing, and he wants to enlist Julia's help to find her. And Julia, of course, is curious as to how he found her. And he says that her friend Nick sent him. And Julia is like, no. And she's like, were you followed? And of course, Pierce is like, no, I took care not to be followed. But Julia has cameras set up everywhere around her apartment, and she starts to notice that there's people who shouldn't be there. And she points them out to Pierce, and she's like, you were followed. So he's like, I'll get them out. So he leaves the apartment complex before they can determine exactly what apartment he's in, who he went to see, why he went to see them. He leaves, and they kind of follow him, but there's also some that kind of stay back. And Julia ends up donning a disguise and walking out of there. And she starts thinking, because she initially said no. She initially told Pierce no, she's not going to help him find Ellie. But she started thinking, and I think that Pierce's love for Ellie touched something in Julia that she wished she had for herself. And so she does track down Pierce at his house, and she tells him that she will try to help him find Ellie. She does tell him that it's not a guarantee. So not to get his hopes up. Now, Pierce tells Julia that Ellie had no secrets from him, that they were in love, of course, they were married, they were best friends, they told each other everything. Ellie was an Oneirofex, which is somebody who guides crowds of people, groups of people, through a shared, vivid, lucid dream experience. And she has, like, different ones that she has people go through. The biggest one that kind of shot her to stardom was about dinosaurs. People wanted to have lucid dreams about dinosaurs. And she's been trying to escape that ever since she stopped holding those sessions. And of course people were hounding her. They wanted to have the dinosaur experience, but she stopped holding them. Now, as Julia's helping Pierce go through Ellie's information, it becomes clear to Julia that Ellie was not as forthcoming with Pierce as Pierce would believe. And there was a whole bunch of secrets. There was parts of her life that Pierce had no idea. For example, Pierce believed that Ellie had never had a one-on-one session with anybody in a dream session. She would not have a one-on-one session with Pierce. In a dream session one-on-one with him. So it becomes clear that Ellie did have a one-on-one dream session, not only with another man, but with a criminal. It kind of sets them off. Pierce is, of course, he feels betrayed, but he still wants to find his wife. He still believes that she's in danger. And Julia, she helps him. Of course, they're tracked down by... The criminal is known as the Prince, and he has, I guess, people everywhere, all over the place, and they are really good at tracking people down by their phones, and watching what they're doing, hacking into like public cameras and finding them. So Piers and Julia go on the run when they find when they come to Pierce's house. I believe they burned his house down. So they go out, they're still looking, and then, how much do I say without giving away too much of the plot? Something happens and Julia ends up looking for the prince on her own. And she ends up at one of the farming locations that the prince has in the United States. And it's run by one of his goons, Victor, who was at the apartment when they were looking for Pierce and trying to figure out who he was talking to. And he was one of the ones that chased them down. She ends up at this place where they have immigrants. And it's basically a slave operation. The prince believes that he's doing them a favor. Like, they're here, they're trying to work off the debt to cut they owe him for bringing them to America where they can pursue the American dream. And he has Victor and the people who run this place do like checks and balances and keep track of like the number of hours that they work and how much debt they've paid off. And of course it's all a sham. And Victor, I guess when it first started, was like, why are we going through all this trouble? You're not going to let them go ever. But of course the prince was like, well, it keeps their morale up if they think that they're working for something. If they know that they're never going to get there, then why would they work? But Julia ends up in this place. And she did sneak in, but she couldn't get back out, which is how she ends up there for a while. And she ends up with a friend of sorts, with an ally. And so these two are trying to kind of make their way out of there. It was an interesting book. It was a fascinating concept. I think that my personal taste would have been, I wanted to read more of the Onero effects part of it. I wanted to read more of the dream sessions and how they worked and like what the purpose behind it was. But the author, I think, was leaning more towards the like thriller hacker aspect of it. And it's not that I didn't like it. I enjoyed the book. But it didn't like wow me. It didn't make me think, oh my goodness, I should have been reading Ken Liu all this time. So like I said, I think it maybe is probably not the best book to have started with Ken Liu, for me. And then in addition to that, there's a part at the end that I felt undermined part of, like a big part of the rest of the book. Like there's something that happened that pushed Julia into an obsession with finding the prince, and then it's kind of like at the end you find out that it's not the way that you saw it, or it's not the way that Pierce saw it, it's not the way that Julia saw it. Like the way that they saw it isn't actually what happened. And so I just felt like it was kind of undermining like the rest of the story, the way that the ending went. And it also felt like a little disjointed. Like when you finish the book and then you realize that there's that last part of the book, it feels like it was just kind of tacked on. And remember that this is the digital review copy. This is not the official copy, so it's entirely possible that the one that is being released officially is going to have a different ending, because that does happen sometimes with between digital review copies and the official copies. All in all, it was a good book. It kept me interested. But again, I kind of wish I had started with a different Ken Liu book. I'm not going to be like pushing things aside on my to-read list to make way for more Ken Liu. But I will definitely read him again. I would like to probably try something I think he has both science fiction and fantasy books. I think I want to try something a little bit more on the fantasy side. So, but thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe below.